Okay, so you've been digging into some pretty important stuff lately
Oh, yeah,
about how to protect your money, right?
definitely. Those key
Like
assets.
all those things, life insurance and annuities,
Retirement accounts, the big ones.
right, and how they can be protected from creditors.
Yeah, yeah, especially at the state level, which
Oh, it
gets
gets complicated.
very, very state specific, and it's
Not exactly a beach read.
not the most fun topic, but
Super important though, right? I mean, you really got to know this stuff.
absolutely vital for financial security. Yeah.
So you shared some resources with us,
Yeah.
including, what was it, the 50 state credit protection?
That's the one, the 50 State Credit Protection and Exemptions Guide.
And it basically says, okay, mostly there is some protection, but
Usually there is some level of protection, but
it depends what you live.
the specifics can change drastically depending on the state.
So let's break it down. Okay, like in general, what kind of protection are we talking about?
So when we're talking about these financial tools, generally most states offer what's called a statutory exemption
Okay.
for life insurance, annuities, and retirement accounts.
Okay.
And this basically means that these assets can be shielded to a certain extent if
Run into trouble.
if you run into trouble like lawsuits or bankruptcy, things like that.
But you were saying before, like, the differences can be huge from state to state.
Oh, absolutely massive, yeah.
Can you give us, like, a real example?
So let's take Florida and Texas, for example.
Okay.
They're known for having really strong asset protection laws.
Okay.
In those states, proceeds from life insurance, even your homestead,
Wow.
can have unlimited protection in many cases.
Unlimited.
And then you compare that to, let's say, another state where the cash value of a life insurance policy might only be protected up to, say, $100,000.
Wow. So
If you have a policy that's worth significantly more than that,
that makes a huge difference.
that is a massive difference.
huge difference.
Yeah, yeah.
So it seems like if you are smart about using things like annuities and life insurance,
Uh-huh.
you're not just getting the tax benefits.
Right, you're getting more than that. You're getting real asset
Yeah,
protection.
that's a good point. Let's talk about annuities for a minute.
Okay.
What about the payments from those? How are those protected?
So this is where it gets really interesting with annuities.
Okay.
Some states have very strong protection for those payments, especially if your beneficiary is a spouse or a dependent.
Mm-hmm.
In those cases, that income stream might be fully protected,
Wow.
no matter what.
That's great.
But then, on the flip side, other states might have monthly limits on how much of that annuity income is actually exempt
Oh, really?
from creditors. It really all comes down to the specifics of your state's laws.
It's all in the details.
Yeah, it's all about the details.
Gotcha. Okay, so then what about retirement accounts, like IRAs and Roth IRAs? How do those usually work?
So, generally speaking, those accounts are protected to the extent that the funds are what they consider reasonably necessary for your support in retirement.
Okay.
Now, of course, reasonably necessary is not
A little vague.
a little vague. It's not always crystal clear.
Yeah.
Courts tend to look at things like your age, your health, your past standard of living,
Your lifestyle.
your lifestyle, yeah, other sources of income you might have
Right.
to figure that out.
So for our listeners, why does all this matter?
Yeah,
Well, if you've got other assets, like
Yeah.
a brokerage account or maybe real estate,
other investments,
or if you're worried about the market tanking or
long-term care expenses down the road.
Exactly. You've got to understand how these state-level protections work.
It's a crucial piece of the puzzle.
It's all part of your overall financial health.
Yeah, your overall financial well-being and how to protect your assets.
Right, and how to keep everything safe.
Right, it all ties back into your broader financial plan.
Exactly. Okay.
Knowing about these state-specific exemptions can really help you make informed decisions
About where your money goes?
about where your money goes, what types of accounts or products will give you more security.
Right. Okay. So the bottom line here is
Yeah.
it really depends where you live.
It does.
It's not the same everywhere.
It's a very diverse landscape when it comes to protecting your assets, yeah.
So my question for you listening is,
Yeah.
now that you know how different these protections are from state to state,
Mm-hmm.
what questions do you have about your own situation?
Yeah, what new questions does this bring up?
What do you need to think about to protect your own assets?
What steps might you want to consider?
Yeah, what steps might you want to consider?
Food for thought.
That's a good place to leave it. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking.